because everyone's so polite. You just don't get that. No one's called anyone a Nazi or a snowflake, and for this day and age, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had a couple of questions from last week that we never got to. We got to helping me figure out how to run a social media program out of my back pocket. So thank you to all that. So we're talking about, what to insource, what to keep in house, and what to outsource. And I've just got a couple of examples up there. I'll just read them to you, but we can go off script at this point. Video, design, social media, content, SEO. What else? Does anybody have an example of something, a function, and currently operating in their organization that they're going to outsource?
So another one that comes up is around your pay-per-click management that we see.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, if you do nonprofits, like particularly, I'm having more and more clients sign up for their Google grants and get the Google grants so they can do, Google gives you $10,000 per month for ad revenue. The challenge with that is it has to be to an email address that's associated with the organization. So, clients will go ahead and try to manage that internally. The challenge of what we're seeing, though, is to just start diving into that. That pay-per-click management expertise is not, it's being added onto someone's plate. They're learning it on an ad hoc basis as they go. And a lot of clients are just putting on a fix it and forget it and not updating as they go. So if you can bring in a partner to update that, and in particular, if you can then spend money over the top of that, then you really want to make sure the two programs are in concert. And yeah, at that point, bring in an outside professional to manage that, because the people that do that on a daily basis, that's what they do, and it's going to be more efficient.
Pay-per-click stuff.
Yeah.
Outsource it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We do a lot of outsourcing of paid social and SEM, and it's so, as much as we all might like to think we know a ton about that here, like if you're not doing it day in and day out, it changes so quickly. There's so much complexity to it. You could waste a lot of money. You really can. Now, some organizations don't have that option, right? They need to do it, but there's a certain point at which I found that I'd like to think that I know about it. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with figuring it out, maybe because you can't afford to outsource it, or maybe you don't have enough budget to outsource it. But if you get to a point where you got enough budget, and that could be, $5,000 a month type budget. I think it makes sense.
I think it's worthwhile having a sandbox budget within your SEM for your team to do some things internally, because you want your team to understand the basics of how it works and how it goes and what goes into it, so that they can manage it and know the reports to have. And I think that's really good. But then once your budget gets above that threshold, it's kind of like gambling. I don't know about you guys. Like when I go to casinos in the olden days, I walked up to the table with a certain amount of money that I was prepared to lose, and then I was prepared to lose. So with your internal PPC management or SEM management, how much are you prepared to just flush for training expenses? And then over that limit, give it to someone that does it full time.
Yeah.
So what kind of a budget, Dave and Ray, for an organization that's watching this, where is that starting point for a budget?
I don't know. I've heard that with some SEM, if you're not spending enough, it's hard to get enough data back to have a sense for, is this really working right? And I've heard $4,000 to $5,000 a month as being a minimum to be spending, because underneath that you're not getting enough sample size. You're not getting enough data back to really have a good sense of whether what you're doing is working or not. I don't know, Ray, what you think.
I would say first of all, if you're a nonprofit, sign up for Google grants, get that going, get your $10,000 a month, and work with that to advance your programs and get that out there. Drive donations, drive signups, whatever. Build your programs around that. That's it. Other than your time, that's not really costing you. And that's a lot to work with.
$10,000 is great.
Okay. But in other channels, like, if you're buying Facebook and LinkedIn, as far as that, I mean, you could be doing $2,000-$3,000 a month easily on your own, or do some basic campaigns. Try some campaigns where you test some things and just set a threshold of like 500, 750 on a campaign, so you can get that experience with it around that, and then drive some results. And then once you're like, okay, this is kind of what we're seeing, is it's working, we're seeing the engagement, go to a partner who can do it. And quite frankly, because the partners that do it at scale have access to tools that an individual buyer does not.
Right.
As well. So kind of like video equipment.
And they're also running, if you work with an agency that does this, that's what they do. It's their bread and butter. They're running lots of campaigns. And so they're learning a lot from running all of those campaigns, which they can impart on your own campaign. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of tips and tricks and little things that if you're not doing it all the time, you don't know.
It's always amazing to me, and Frank's the expert on this for us, but there's so many different strategies, that you can pursue. There are, strategies to get just exposure. There are strategies to get clicks, and all those different strategies come with different price points, right? Like if you're actually trying to drive leads into your organization, it's more expensive to do that than if you're just trying to go for impressions and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like on LinkedIn, we tested lead form ads or whatever they're called for a client, and even though they're like way more expensive than like a pay-per-click campaign or whatever, or any of the other options, it was just like we got the lead information faster.
Yeah,
there wasn't like trying to nurture them through things, blah blah blah.
Yeah. And then you tie that into remarketing, and it gets kind of complicated. I can see how, a typical, that's a hard thing to run without somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, you can do a lot of like recouping your cost too, like you said about retargeting. Like, even if they don't, download your ebook or whatever on the first go around, you can then build a remarketing audience off of that and just keep on whittling it down.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole notion of building an audience online, not an audience that comes into your midst, is really, I think, kind of scary for a lot of people, but often it's the most effective way to do it.
It really is. And people are looking for, more and more people are looking for resources other than yet another webinar, yet another Zoom call, other than this one. This one's totally awesome. But people are looking for those downloadable resources. How do I cope? And it goes back to being like, are you providing that information that's addressing it and getting them into that funnel around that?
Yeah.
Which comes back to your content marketing, which I think that content marketing was another one of the items on your list, and that's one of those ones that depends. I will tell you, so I'm not to give a plug.
It depends what content, producing content, insourcing it or outsourcing it.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts there?
Well, I was going to say, so I want to just get it. This is not a shameless plug for you guys since you all do video, but for God's sakes, outsource your video. Please don't try to do it in house.
Yeah.
Please, that's the crappiest video I see is where someone did it. So, true story, former employer said, we want to do video and we want to do in-house. I was like, I don't think you want to do that. I was like, the commitment to doing that and the expertise and the equipment, I was like, and just the quality. I'm like, I don't have a video producer on my staff. So I was like, you know what, let me do an experiment and so on and so forth. And because he wanted to do it real cheap. And so I did a experiment with my handheld camcorder, and he agreed. And I basically sandbagged the experiment. It was totally horrible. I totally did it on purpose, totally sandbagged it. And the CEO was like, you're right, this is absolute crap. Here's, what do you need? I said, okay, I need a 3-chip camera. I need lights. I need a high-end Mac. I need Adobe Premiere Pro, so on and so forth. He gave me this budget and so on and so forth. Then we started doing it, and it became someone's full-time job. And he's like, well, why can't you get this done? I'm like, because you want all this video created, but I have to take a body to put on this full-time, and I can't get this other stuff done because I don't have, like, I have good equipment. I don't have great equipment.
Yeah.
And once I got him to agree, just like, let me go to an outsource and go to someone. And we got great. Now we started just getting it faster. We got it better and stuff like that. And I think that's one of those things is like scripted internally, but shoot and edit externally. It's going to be faster, better, cheaper every single time.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff on the internet about doing it yourself.
Yeah.
And what they don't tell you is it's just like, it's really hard. Like even when I'm at home, I'm doing a lot of stuff myself. So we're not setting up, sets and cameras and lights and things like that. And so it's me and this, and, just constantly checking, did I get it right? And, just not having an expert eye on it. It's really, really hard. So we used to go into people's offices all the time to shoot video, and there'd be like a tripod and a nice camera and some lights, and I'd be a green screen, like, what's going on here? Like, well, we tried to do it. It didn't look real good.
It's been one of the, what would I say, detractor points from a lot of technology development for a long time, because people mistaked the technology for the expertise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this goes all the way back to the prevalence of word processors and everybody assuming now they could do their own brochures. Because they have a word processor, they're now a writer. And then graphic programs came out, and because they have a graphics program, they're now a designer. And it provides great benefits having all of these technology tools. But there's always that challenge to make people understand that the technology is the tool, not the expertise. I don't get so much anymore, but I used to get all kinds of inquiries about surveys and doing market research and things, and people say, we've already got the survey system. It's like, okay, well, out of a $20,000 project, you've now got 1,000 covered. But it was hard to explain sometimes. Oh, anybody can write a question, right? Now we've got the survey system. And so it's got to be true of video. It's got to be true of.
And I think the challenge with all these tools and making everything accessible. So my jaw dropped at the last year's 2019's MMC when there was a session on skill sets in the modern marketing department. And Dave, I know we've talked about this, and they showed like the skill sets in entry level marketers are expected to have that management is expecting, which I don't know about you, like coding, HTML coding. Can you use Photoshop? Can you write great copy? Can you do a pay-per-click campaign? Like all these things. And like it's like we as marketers are like, we're expected to be able to do everything awesomely.
Right.
And it just doesn't, like, you need to know what you do well and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do well, and I'm going to get an expert that can do this better and bring them in and get a better results around that.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends, like on all the bullets that you listed off, like video, design, content, SEO, social, pay-per-click. In some ways I had yes in-source and yes outsource, right? Except for probably pay-per-click. And then maybe as you get bigger, you could maybe afford to have someone that just does that if you're a big enough organization, right? But you guys know, I've probably referenced this book before, Marcus Sheridan, who wrote They Ask You Answer. And it's, I don't know, it's relatively recent, 2018 or something like that. And in it, he, and I was at the Digital Sales and Marketing World Conference. And one of the things that he said is very focused on inbound marketing, content marketing, but everyone's talking about doing video more, right? And he said they're the first two hires. And so that depends, meaning like it depends on the size of your organization primarily. But he said, if you're a smaller organization, you're getting into this, your first two hires should be a videographer and a content marketer, right? And so you should be doing video first content strategy, and you should hire a videographer. So that's what they do, and that's all they do. Now, does that always work? No, it may not. It depends on the videos that you're doing, right? Like you might want to have somebody when you're, if you want to do a really quick video, for example, of your CEO, and let's say it's still the days we're in the office, right? If you had a videographer, maybe you could do something quickly and put it out the same day, right, and edit it quickly. Doesn't mean you couldn't do that with Paul and Thoughtcast, right? But I think there could certainly be examples where your strategy, if it's becoming video first, you could be doing a lot more if you did have somebody inside, right? That's all they do. Their job is to only produce video for the organization. Could be executives, could be testimonials, it could be all kinds of stuff. But obviously I'm not discounting. I mean, I'm a customer of Paul's, and at ACR we're a customer of Thoughtcast, and we're about to do some more stuff. It really depends, I think, and a lot of the stuff here, whether it's content or design, social, I would never outsource. I think that would be a huge mistake. But like design, sometimes you want like somebody, you want to get new, fresh design ideas externally from working with an agency, for example, because you can fire an agency and go to another one. But then you might want to do the smaller production once you've got the design elements. Maybe you're doing smaller, repetitive type stuff, then you've got a designer on staff.
Applying the design, yeah.
And so some of the higher end video stuff you're probably going outside for, but some of the quicker, if you get into a video first content strategy, you might consider that.
I think the other thing you need to look at within your video first strategy, and I know you guys have run into this, you need to look at your talent that you're shooting with, because I've interviewed people that you can put the camera on and in 2.5 minutes, you've got 5 minutes shooting, you have 5 minutes worth of usable footage. And I've also shot people where I sat there for an hour and I got 30 seconds of usable footage.
Yeah.
So you need to have a frank CTJ with your team of put your executive on camera in a screen test and see if they can actually speak coherently to a camera. And if not, then that's a concern.
Yeah, having done this, that's a real concern. Having done a lot of this, I find it's probably upwards of 80% of people are fine on camera. They do quite well. But over the 15 years or whatever, there are some people who are just famously bad. I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about those shoots. Just it didn't work.
But that's where that experience comes in, working with the professional firm, external, coming in. Sometimes it's good that they don't know the characters involved or don't have any political baggage going along with it, or an axe to grind or whatever. Yeah, and that you can guide. I've seen Paul guide people through stuff where your internal marketing manager who's now taken on some video responsibility has no effing clue. And maybe you waste the executive's time, or you don't get what you want to get out of it, right? So I think there are examples where you could argue for, in-source and outsource and having a combination of stuff.
Yeah. But I think Ray is right. I mean, if you don't have people inside who are good spokespeople, who can't step into that role and explain what's going on with the policy, you need at least one person who can do that. Because, every now and then I get called in, I can't do it. I mean, they're nervous, and I think the biggest problem that I run into that ruins video shoots is there's a desire to be perfect. Dude, we're doing a corporate video here. You don't have to, and your changes to the script weren't any good to begin with. But so don't waste my time trying to deliver them perfectly. So you do need, I think that's an important point. If you're going to pursue a video first strategy, which I encourage, okay, even if you're doing it all yourself, you have to have people, not just the technicians, the sort of the specialists who can do the video on behind the camera. You need people who are good in front of the camera. You need somebody who can deliver your company's message. Otherwise, it's like pulling teeth. It'll just ruin everything. It'll be like that executive is having a horrible time doing it. You're having a horrible time doing it. You spent 8 hours trying to do it. It didn't work. I mean, if after 3 or 4 hours of getting someone to try to deliver a couple of lines and it doesn't work, it's really miserable.
Yeah.
In an earlier part of this conversation, I think when we were talking about search engine marketing, somebody, maybe Dave, made the point that it's also, besides the expertise to plan and execute a campaign, there's also the benefit of somebody who has done it in a lot of different contexts, knowing what kinds of things work and what kinds of things don't work. So how does that factor into what you're recommending now?
It does exactly, doesn't it? with video, Paul? I mean, that's kind of what he's saying in a lot of ways. I think we're all saying is that.
So I've been saying it for years. One of my biggest value adds is talking people out of doing the videos that they want to do. So I get a lot of people come to me and they're like, I don't do this. And they describe some, crazy thing. A lot of the devices that they want in there are taken from, major motion pictures. It's just all wrong. And, they have a vision in their mind of what it's going to look like, but they've never done it before. So I guess the analog would be, I'm going to write a blog and it's going to be Huck Finn, essentially. It's going to be that great. And that's not the point. That's not what you're trying to do. So yeah, expertise, experience does help steer people in the right direction. And I think a lot of these things are all about expertise. Like, I think marketers are good at being jacks of all trades. Like I'd have confidence in throwing just about any marketing exercise at you guys, and you could figure it out, but you're not going to be like, for example, could I do a pay-per-click campaign? I guess so, but why would you have me do that when somebody else like Frank can do it, or somebody else on the line can do it better? So it's a matter of how much you value that expertise and how much you're willing to pay for people to learn, even if they do or can learn. It's tough.
Yeah, when I was at Aptify, I was the CMO there for about a year and a half before it was acquired by Community Brands, and then I was there another 6 months and then left. But when I first got there, the marketing team was good, but they were kind of using an odd marketing automation platform that was made for companies that produce metal products. It was the strangest thing ever. And in general, the staff didn't really have the experience of doing kind of more cutting edge digital marketing and the strategy, and then the ability to execute on it. And so I brought on HubSpot, but then we also went to a HubSpot agency as Impact Branding and Design. They're the ones that do Digital Sales and Marketing World Conference, right? And I worked with them for that year and a half or so before we were acquired. And I learned so much working with them. And I thought I was pretty good and I knew what I was talking about, but I learned so much and the whole team learned a lot. Mm-hmm. So they brought the whole level, they supercharged our marketing, not only in the time of that year, it was a year and a half, I think, that we were working with them. Not only just supercharge the marketing, but supercharge the marketing team, and we all learned from them. But then there's a certain point where they're still bringing in new ideas because they're working with various clients and they get that experience, just like the pay-per-click stuff. Right. But there was a little bit diminishing over the long run because we had also come up to speed at a pretty high level. But certainly, it was interesting to outsource a huge chunk of the marketing, in a sense. Strategy, execution, some of the technology and connecting it together and all that. You can do it.
I would think there's some hybrid models as well. If you have a client, Paul, who's got a video first approach, I would think you'd be able to say there's a certain category of videos that you may or may not need my expertise for, or me to actually do it, but I'll incorporate it into the overall plan that we're doing for your video, some of which I need to do, some of which I can maybe provide input on, but you can do. And I think that kind of expertise is extremely valuable.
Yeah, I think the best example of that is editing. So, I try to stay away from just doing editing because I like to have my fingers around the whole process. Sometimes people say, can you edit this? It's like, it's a piece of crap, No, I can't really do anything with that. And you waste a lot of time trying to fashion it into something that can be audience ready. But some people are pretty good at that. People are good with, with cameras and they can capture the footage and then turn that stuff over. And it's just like design, Dave. I think that's a really good example. You've got an agency who can do the master design. If you've got a talented designer who can apply the design to all the other stuff you've got, that's a great division of labor, I think, and very, very cost effective, because you don't want to pay the high-end design company big bucks to do a brochure for an annual meeting or
postcard or something like that.
Postcard, something like that.
Yeah.
It's great to be able to say, here are the guidelines. This is why we all have logo charts, right? Logo instructions. Don't use it like this, because God help you, if you've ever worked at a company that didn't have that, people just do horrible things to logos. And so, so being able to have somebody on site who can apply it with that direction, that's really a great hybrid model.
If you ever get a chance, and you probably wouldn't, it's next impossible to see, but if you ever have a chance to see a brand guidebook from a Disney property.
Oh, really?
That is an art. That is a thing. And they're like, because I used to work for a Disney licensee. And so you're going to do a Disney property. Like there's a book you order that's like this thick with like all the art and every single rule around the art. And it is laid out perfectly for you to hand to a designer. And they think through every single scenario of everything. And so that whatever your designer creates looks like it was done by the art house of Disney.
Right.
With pulling those pieces together. Now, of course, you still have to run everything back through Disney brand management to have them sign off on it, and that's going to take a month and a half. But it's going to look perfect around that.
Yeah. So what other things might we outsource?
So an interesting thing.
We talked about social. We talked about content, but then we got into just video content. So is there stuff there? But Ray, I interrupted you. What were you gonna?
Yeah, I was gonna say part of what Tom was going with public relations. That's a good one where I often see good hybrid models where you have a good internal PR team partnered with a PR agency. So your internal PR team is able to tell the story and pull that together, and then partnering with your external agency. And one of the things a good external agency is able to bring to the table is media relations.
Right.
And that's those relationships of like, hey, like I'm on a first name basis with the editor at the Wall Street Journal, and he'll take your phone call. Whereas otherwise you're not going to get that phone call. So you can have that. So that's a really good partnership between an internal PR and an external PR agency.
That's a good example.
So
Frank, you're constantly trying to get me to outsource stuff. What do you think?
I mean, pretty like selfish motivation for me. Yeah, it's kind of stuff that's like just eating up too much of my time. And we don't do like a lot of sophisticated stuff, I guess I would say. So like in social, for example, you guys said like you wouldn't outsource that, but like the stuff we're trying to outsource is like so basic that like I'm pretty sure I could lay out the guidelines and have, like our 19-year-old intern doing it.
On that note, Patrick Berzai, I guess 2 or 3 shows ago, he said, there are 2 levels. If you're just trying to, when people visit your social media channels, they want to see that you're a competent, normal organization with a culture. There's pictures of everybody eating at the Thanksgiving potluck dinner, and
you're active.
Things like that. You're active. It's not, it's not. The last post was 19. That's too late. That's too long ago. 2014. But
and yet there are people with those posts out there that are that old.
That's right. But so we're kind of at that level. In order to really drive leads, you gotta spend money on advertising. And we do, but not enough probably.
Yeah.
So that level of expertise, I think, can be outsourced.
Yeah. I think something that probably isn't outsourced now, and may not even be that much insourced enough, is just your MarTech stack, like the ecosystem of products. I imagine there are probably some organizations that are doing consulting around it, specific to the MarTech stack, but there's so many products out there that I would imagine there's some really good opportunity, and it's probably not something that should be insourced.
I think Scott Brinker actually did an email about this week.
Did he?
Scott Brinker is,
Yeah.
for y'all don't know him, writes the Chief Marketing Technologist, chiefmartech.com, marketing technologist. Used to be with another group. He's now like strategy director at HubSpot. But he did a post about the fact that like if you're overwhelmed by the number of systems out there, just wait to look at the number of services in the MarTech stack around that. Of services companies to do X, Y, Z, and so on and so forth. And that's, and you're right, David. There's so many ways. Like, oh, I want a HubSpot partner. I want a Marketo partner, or someone X, Y, Z, and pulling it all together.
Yeah.
Well, there's always been a rule of thumb, if you will, or a way to think about outsourcing that I've always found useful, and that is this a skill, a capability, a competency which you should invest in because it's mission critical for your organization, or isn't it? If it's not, then you should be thinking about outsourcing it. If it is, you have to question whether you should outsource it because you're now outsourcing a core competency for the organization, and now you're dependent on that.
Mm-hmm.
I might add telemarketing.
Oh, yeah.
Outsourcing.
Yeah.
We didn't bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Not that I really do any, but
If you're a B2B firm, there's also firms out there that will do your business development, your BDR calls.
Right.
That will get, if you're in a B2B space, like they get paid by the meetings scheduled and stuff like that. And some of them are, I know people that work at those kinds of places. They're hellholes, and people move out of there quickly. If you do well, you get hired quickly in as a inside sales rep at one of your places. And for many of them, that's actually a career path. They're like, oh, you liked working with so-and-so. Did you know you could hire him and have him as the inside sales rep? But they get results around that as opposed to having your own internal BDR that's working the phones. Yeah,
I've never had a whole lot of luck outsourcing that. I've done a share of it back when I was in the corporate world, but I've had more success with internal people, but they've got to be completely and totally dedicated to that. They have to be professional, business development people, not run-of-the-mill salespeople who also do that, to drive part of their pipeline. They have to be really dedicated inside salespeople. I've had luck dealing with that inside. So we've only got 10 minutes left, or not even 8 minutes left. So let's get to the last question, which is, what website features should go away? I knew, Ray, when you said that you wanted to get to these two, I knew that was the one that you wanted to get to. So you have the floor, sir.
My favorite website out there, I want everyone to visit it, is shouldiuseacarousel.com.
Oh, it's going to be my favorite one now too.
Just go look it up. So it's that one. So everyone's like, I want a rotator. I want a carousel. I'm like, no one looks at it. Yeah. No one pulls it up. It doesn't do, and the data just shows you have no clicks on anything past the second one.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite. Every time a client says to me, I want a slider, I just reply with that URL. I'm like, that's all I do.
What do you think about, as opposed to the slider, now you kind of see like it's just the copy changes, right? And so it's not sliding out, but it's just a different headline, maybe a different image, right? So it just kind of appears. Is it the same thing, do you think?
Yeah, it was. So the reality is just think about your website, of what's happening there, and how are you using your website when it comes to that slider and that campaign space. So the eye tracking studies actually show most users' eyes skip over that because we've been trained to know it's gaga. Okay, we've been trained to know it's irrelevant, it's marketing bullshit that's been being thrown at me, and our eyes just go right. We look at the navigation and we jump down to the next area. Now, if you are actively curating it, and that's where you need to look in your analytics and see what's your frequency of people coming back and looking at it. If you're changing it on a regular basis and you have your people trained to change it, then change it on a regular basis, but have a pattern to know what's going on within it. But otherwise, people look at that the first time, they pay about 3 seconds, spend 3 seconds on it, and then they move right on.
I'm going to share my screen on that one because it's just that damn good. Now, let's see.
Big green button at the bottom that says share screen.
Mine's at the top, but yes.
Did you notice the smaller buttons that say optimize for video and for, that's what I was doing,
Yeah.
David. You must know. But I love this. This is what you find when you first go there. So yeah, that's a
And
a
what's
bad
the
one.
URL?
Should I use a carousel.com?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw mine out. I'll let this just run for a little bit, which might be a little bit of a surprise. Giant, and I'm making air quotes, brand videos on your homepage. I just don't think they work. Ray, you do a lot. You're our website expert.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So so we use them intermittently.
Yep.
And it does come back to the quality. It comes back to the quality of your footage, and do you have an interesting story to tell within it? So, like for example, one of our clients is the Andy's Amazon Fund. So they're working to preserve areas up in the Andes and go into the Amazon and stuff like that. They have awesome drone footage of like the Andes and going over the trees and showing that impact. And their whole thing is, and their website is designed to generate major donors. And so it needs to be that inspiration, that kind of thing. But I think if you're going to do that kind of footage, you need to use original footage. Don't use the stock footage. If I can get it off of stock, then if you can get off of stock for your video, it shouldn't be there. It needs to be original footage that you shot. Even if it's in your office, showing your location of people walking by, the logo or people meeting and so on and so forth, the CEO being in a meeting, stuff like that. Original footage works, but if it's stock, nah.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think, footage that really tells these stories. So I would disagree with you that is, I don't think you're telling much of a story to show your CEO walking to a meeting and things like that, but you're absolutely right. If you can show what your organization is about in video, a lot of people really can't. And so what I see is executives late at night staring out into the city from their windows. What a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that it loads slowly. Wow.
What about like the video in the background of the hero image? That's like almost disorienting. So you see it a lot, and it's just like some video going. I almost find it sometimes like makes me dizzy, and I don't always get like why, especially when there's like 50% opacity or whatever to it. So it's just kind of dark back there, but there's this moving image, and you're not even really sure what it is. I don't know. What do you guys think about that one?
It's a technique we've used with some companies and some clients as a way to communicate more of what they're doing and to bring some of their personality. I mean, do you have personality is a big question, to bring that into the web presence around that. But it's going to be on a case by case basis, and but again, it's always original footage, not stock.
What other features are people tired of seeing?
Pop-ups.
Well, you have no pop-ups at all?
I know they can be effective, but I'm not sure if they're still effective. We don't have any on our websites, so I can't tell you like if they're still effective today. I know that a couple of years ago, at least, they were still effective. But it's like when you go onto that website and you got about 3 seconds, and then something is already interrupting you, where you're trying to accomplish something and you're already getting interrupted. That interruptive-based pop-ups are, I find, really just, especially on a mobile device, really annoying.
How do you feel about so like we use Opt-in Monster with several clients, and Opt-in Monster has really good exit intent, so you get the pop-up at the exit.
Yeah, I'm a fan of
that can be different. I've gotten what I need to do, and I'm leaving, right? But not like when I first get in there and you're about to read the article and it's like poof. Like,
yeah,
oh, man.
Yeah, those full screen ones are the worst.
And what's that, Frank?
And the one that irritates me the most is where they're they say, you know, can you give us feedback on our website or something? It's like, you're interrupting me. I'm doing business on your site, and you're interrupting me to ask me to do something for you. It's insanely annoying, and it happens more and more, I find.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that they're pretty effective. I shouldn't say that, Frank. They're effective for us, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think every study I've seen shows that, and of course these are like limited scope studies, so like who knows like down the line how it's impacting things, but you know, up front it almost always results in higher conversion rates from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
What I really hate those are the snarky comments like, yes, I'll download the ebook, and then no, I want to remain in like a black hole of it.
Yeah, I'm a loser. No, yeah,
I'm a loser.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I don't want to save money.
Yeah,
that's so awful. Who does that?
Passive aggressive marketing.
Totally.
Yeah, passive aggressive marketing.
Somebody A/B
could
tested
do a
it and
show
found
on
it
that.
worked.
Yeah.
Ray,
That actually has a sad part. Someone did A/B tested and it worked.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh,
yeah, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you said stock video. How about stock photos? Can we just stop putting those on websites? Pet peeve.
You know what? Yeah, well, that means, though, that you've got to go out and shoot your own stock footage and your stock video, which I've seen done effectively. I have a customer who is in fact, she is going to be on our next show. Her name is Dana Theus, and she is a very, very talented marketer who has, in the last 10 years, 7 years, whatever, become a very, very effective individual and corporate coach. She's very smart. You guys are really going to enjoy hearing what she has to say. But I shot a testimonial video for her, and the woman that was the subject of this video commissioned her own stock footage or her own stock imagery. Had a professional camera come in and take pictures of her working with staff.
Yeah.
And it's really good. Every executive ought to do that. Spend it.
But is that really stock? If it's you, it's not really stock, right?
I mean, it's custom photography, but yeah, it's.
Yeah. But I mean,
you're building your own library that can't be anywhere else, and you own the rights to.
But it's your stock. You know, it's not universal.
Yeah, if it's your staff, though, like it's a photo of your staff working, right?
Yeah.
Like that's good.
But there were some things that were clearly posed, you know, like she's, you know, that sort of thing. By the way, do you guys know the actor Vince Vaughn?
Yeah.
He produced a series of stock photos, like corporate stock photos. Have you ever seen it? So funny. I'll look that up. So what else do we hate about websites?
Having your Facebook accounts showing your most recent activity on the Facebook page, like the scroll of your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed and stuff like that on your homepage.
Or the floating social icons that kind of float down with you as you scroll down the page. Let's just get rid of that, right?
Yeah, people know how to share things on Twitter now. We don't need that.
Yeah, we don't need that anymore. The only reason to have like that social stuff is
oops, sorry.
That was a creative brief.
We don't. I hit the wrong one. So can you see the?
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
isn't that great. Look at this.
idiotic stock photos.
That's great.
Oh my God. Can we actually? You could actually use those. What are they on? Like Unsplash? It should be.
You could. This is so funny.
That's funny.
Now, the marketers who belong in the Marketing Hall of Fame are people who have actually used some of these in their corporate marketing stuff. And that would be me. I couldn't resist.
That's a good one.
Nobody said anything. Nobody said, is that Vince Vaughn? They all look the same. We get it. So, okay. I have a last website bad feature that needs to go away? Any ideas?
I'm trying not to hog the conversation. I have so many. So the other ones that everyone's been quiet. Whenever I hear, oh, this needs to be above the fold.
Yeah, we all scroll nowadays.
Yeah, can you get this content above the fold? I'm like, which device, which scroll? You know, we all scroll. Let's
I didn't know
stop that.
websites folded like newspapers used to. Right?
Well, and the whole shifts towards a longer continuous scroll, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, above the fold. I love it.
So my pet peeve is small font. That's one
yeah.
that just pisses me off. It's like you go onto a site and you're like, really? And it's not because I'm getting older and I can't read it. It's just like no one's gonna read it. It's just too freaking small. You know, like bump up that font a lot, basically. I don't know what minimums, Ray, what you guys recommend, but like 16, 18, 20 pixel, like, I mean, minimum, right? For copy?
Up now.
You've reminded me that there's a number of sites that I land on that aren't enabled for mobile. I'm just amazed that there are still sites, but you load them up on even your iPad, and it's like
they're not responsive.
It's so little you couldn't possibly read it.
Yeah, less copy and bigger font.
Yeah. Yeah, back in the print days, there was I worked with one designer who would talk about the dollar bill rule. You should not be able to put a dollar bill onto a piece of content on a printout, something printed out, and not hit some sort of graphic element or a subhead or something that's not body copy. And that's pretty good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
A little out of date, but okay.
Hard to do these days. We don't even carry cash. I don't even carry cash anymore. So
you need to hold a Bitcoin up to your monitor and then measure it that way.
That's the solution.
Yep, that passes.
Yeah.
By the way, I moved on to my tried and true District Common by Atlas Logger.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I need a little logger.
I think I need to replenish. I ran out of the beer my sons bought me for Father's Day, or almost.
That's quick.
Yeah, especially since your brother was at the beach all week, and so he didn't drink my beer.
Yeah.
He and his girlfriend stayed away from my beer, which is good. All right, boys. I think we're done, huh?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks again. It was a good conversation.
Thank you much.
As always.
Good chatting, guys. Have a good week.
Go forth.
Take care.
See ya.
See y'all later.
Drink more beer.
Drink more beer.